Let's play a little game of binge, stream, and skip. And we'll do this on every single one of our midweek podcasts as we look ahead to the action of the upcoming slate. Week 1, what are we binging? What do we have to watch? What is one game that we are absolutely positively not going to miss by any circumstances? We're throwing a watch party. We're not checking our phones. We're on Do Not Disturb. What are we binging this week?
Adam, are you capable of not checking you youngins? I don't know if you guys can actually put your phones away for a full football game.
I'll be live tweeting in every single game. So I'll be on my phone the whole time.
It's good business. It's good business. I go Notre Dame, Texas A&M as the binge, right? Like, I think there's so much on the line with this game for both programs. Notre Dame, remember, they don't have a shot. They can't get a top 4 seed. We know that. So Notre Dame's only path to the playoff is to be one of the wild cards every single year. And we all know what the conversation looks like about playoff success or lack thereof for Notre Dame. So they've got this game against Texas A&M, who I'm not sure is real. I feel like we're all sort of sleeping on where Texas A&M is, Adam. But like, I think this is one of the rare week 1 games where there's a lot that both sides can be proving from it. So for me, binge, because there's drama from both sides and there's a lot on the line.
Kyle Field is going to be rocking for this game. Yes. Mike Elko's first game as a head coach at Texas A&M. You know, what he brings to that program, what he did at Duke was a phenomenal job. I think A&M will play well, but I like Notre Dame in this game. Defense travels. Notre Dame's got top 3 defense in the country. I think that one will be fun. The other one that we can't sleep on is Penn State, West Virginia. I'll be binge watching that game, and a sneaky good week 1 game. You know, Penn State's favored by 8 points. I think that's probably too much. I mean, traveling to West Virginia, Morgantown's going to be electric. And this is a huge game for Penn State. I mean, this is the year for Penn State. This is the year that for the past few, for the last 4 or 5 years in Happy Valley, everyone's pointed to this year as Drew Aller back at quarterback, Nick Singleton at running back, Katron Allen, Abdul Carter, their best recruiting classes now 3 years in, Andy Kotelnicki, their offensive coordinator. Penn State in the last 8 years, if there was a 12-team playoff, Penn State would have made the playoff six times in those 8 years. So they're one of the biggest beneficiaries for the 12-team playoff, and Penn State cannot lose this game because if they lose it, you can't slip up another time in the season and still make the playoff. So that'll be a fun one in Morgantown.
By the way, real quick, I hear that, and I think there's a lot of pressure on Penn State this year and James Franklin. They're not paying James Franklin to miss the playoffs, right? So in an expanded Big Ten, Penn State, Carolina, they got to show up.
This is one that they could be a major beneficiary of an expanded playoff, or they could get totally screwed by conference expansion because no longer is Penn State the 3rd best in the conference. No longer is Penn State always going to go 10-2 with losses to Ohio State and Michigan, or, insert another team there. You also now have to compete with USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. So I think that Penn State's a really interesting case study. And Fitz, I love that pick. Notre Dame and Texas A&M. That is going to be the game that I am going to be binging because I love this storyline of Mike Elko and Riley Leonard. Mike Elko, now the head coach at Texas A&M, formerly the coach of Duke. Riley Leonard transfers in to Notre Dame from Duke. Mike Elko is a defensive-minded head coach, and he knows what makes Riley Leonard tick. He might know his tendencies. He likes what he likes. He knows what he likes. He knows what he doesn't like. So I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic here is a Mike Elko, I don't want to say led because he's not the defensive coordinator, but I'll say it instead. A Mike Elko-led defense against a quarterback that he knows very, very well. I love this game, and I love a matchup where it feels like all the expectations and pressures on Notre Dame. Texas A&M might be playing with a little bit of house money. Another game that I'm going to be binging is Miami and Florida. I love this. This feels like a game that should happen every single year. And it feels like a matchup to me of one team that might be getting a little bit too much hype, maybe getting a little bit too much love in Miami, and a team that might not be getting enough love. I think we've all written Florida off just because they have the hardest schedule in the history of the world. But that doesn't mean that they're not a good football team. That doesn't mean that Florida can't steal a game here or there. I think we all like to forget that Graham Mertz had a really good season last year, a decent season last year as the signal caller for Florida. Pop quiz. Anybody know who had the highest completion percentage in the SEC last season? It wasn't Jackson Dart. It wasn't Jaden Daniels who won the Heisman Trophy. It wasn't Carson Beck at Georgia. It was Graham Mertz at Florida. So I think that this game might be an interesting one. Might be giving Florida a little bit more credit if they're able to take down the Hurricanes in week 1. Let's move on to stream. a game that isn't quite binge-worthy. It might not be appointment watching, but we still want to watch it. It might be one of those games that we catch up on later in the night or watch some highlights on Sunday. Adam, what are we streaming?
I like this Clemson-Georgia game at a neutral site in Atlanta. I think Georgia wins this game. Okay, I'm going to say that. But I do think for Clemson that this could be Cade Klubnik's coming out party. I think it could be his game where on a big stage, he finally kind of figures it out, distributes to his playmakers, doesn't turn the football over, and keeps his team close against a really good Georgia defense and gets that confidence for the rest of the season. We talked about the ACC being wide open. Clemson can lose this game and still run the table and go win the ACC and make the college football playoffs. So I think this is a big game for Cade Klubnik on one of the biggest stages of the weekend.
I don't need to watch that game. I'm skipping that game.
It's over?
It's over. I don't need to watch that game. Georgia's going to beat them by 40. I respect your stream.
40? It's going to be killing.
They're going to kill. I don't need to watch that game. Skipping it.
I don't think so.
Skip.
I think this thing's competitive through three quarters. And
you just told me the Cade's going to have a coming out party against the best defense he's going to play all year. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm not saying he's going to win, but it's going to be a confidence game for Cade Klubnik, and I think Clemson's going to have a good season. Georgia's favored by 13.5. I think Clemson covers that. I think it's a closer to 13.5 point game.
No, I don't. I've got my money. I've already put my money on Georgia in this one. We saw how that went on week 0. Hopefully week 1 doesn't bankrupt me. But look, and I agree with you that I think Cade has the opportunity this year to really change some of the narratives about him. I thought we were a little harsh and unfair at times last year for the way he played. And I think that we've created an unfair narrative around Clemson not being willing to utilize the transfer portal and NIL. Like, there's this concept that Dabo's stuck in 90s football, but I don't think that's real. I just think that if you look on paper, like if we were playing the video game version of this, everybody got college football 25 over the summer, right? Like we were 24. If we're playing the college football video game of this, it is clear. The computer simulates it. One team is wildly better than the other, and particularly on the defensive side of the ball. This feels like 3 picks. You got to worry about Cade keeping his confidence after this Georgia defense bangs him up. I like Georgia. I like the points. So I got some pizza money on this one. Whew.
I'm skipping that game, and I'm watching that game. I'm not a crazy person. Of course, I'm going to be watching that game. Of course, I'm going to be watching even the games that I'm like, Furman, Ole Miss, North Texas, South Alabama, but I'm just watching it because I'm an absolute psychopath. What are some other games that we feel like we can probably just skip past this weekend? Fitz, I'll start with you.
I'm skipping Colorado, North Dakota State. And look, this is just because
I think you're crazy. I'm
exhausted. We haven't even started and I'm exhausted. Number one, Colorado deciding that they're not going to let certain reporters ask any questions has become such a wild story. And the fact that the school hasn't stepped in and done the right thing is gross. But above and beyond all that, what did we learn last year? Whatever Colorado does, we overreact to it. And that's fine. I'm bracing for it. I'm accepting it. It's like your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving that is going to say something that makes the whole table uncomfortable. Like, I get it. I'm ready for it. I'm just not ready for it week 1. Like, what are you going to get out of a North Dakota State game? If they don't play well, the sky's going to be falling. Everybody's going to freak out. If they beat them by 4 touchdowns, it's going to be, look at Shedeur. This is the Heisman winner. I don't want any of that. I don't want the hype from a big win. I don't want the chaos from a narrow win. I don't want any of it. Colorado is in a tough situation. I don't think they're going to be a particularly good football team this year. I think they're going to be okay. And unfortunately, we have too many eyeballs to let them just be okay. There has to be some revolutionary take about it one way or the other. At least wait until they're playing a reasonable opponent to craft an opinion on it. I'm not even going to touch Colorado, North Dakota State until the bosses tell me I have to, in which case I'll watch it. That's it for me, Adam.
Man, tell us how you really feel about Colorado. I love it. I'm with you. Skipping that one. The game I'm skipping on top of that is Virginia Tech at Vandy. It's at the noon time slot. Same time we got Penn State, West Virginia, Clemson, Georgia. I think Virginia Tech cakewalks Vandy, and Vandy just doesn't belong playing SEC football. Not committed to winning. Virginia Tech though, gonna have a really good season. They'll be 3-0 going into Rutgers, I think, in week 4. So, but I'll be skipping that one. What about you, Caroline?
I'm not going to say that, as I am just a stone's throw away from Vanderbilt here in Nashville.
You might offend both Vandy football fans, like all 2 of them. You're just going to really piss them off with this show?
I think there's 3 now.
Okay, my
So
bad.
easy. Give credit where credit is due. I don't disagree with you in the slightest. That's not on my skip list. Is North Dakota State, Colorado? Because either way, there's going to be a reaction. Colorado wins. It's an overreaction to what Colorado is and can be. Colorado loses now. I'm sorry. Twitter is going to lose its freaking mind. And I love a game that elicits that sort of reaction, especially when it's not even against an FBS opponent. So I'm definitely watching that game. I said it. I'm not actually skipping it, but Clemson, Georgia is one of those games that I feel like I already know the outcome. I don't have to watch it, but either way, week one is going to have some incredible matchups. One game that we didn't get a chance to touch on, but we will on Saturday night is USC and LSU as they have the primetime matchup on Sunday. Another juicy matchup. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge for you, Fitzy, in week one. And we will have a breakdown of all of week one, and that will be live on Sunday.